My name is Riley Ward. I'm a first lieutenant in the U.S. Army, stationed at Rota Naval Base, southern Spain. That morning, I was coordinating transport for an ammo convoy near the Jordanian border when my father texted me 3 words that would shift everything. We sold it. I stared at the screen like it had betrayed me. It. He meant Cedar Hill, the cabin my grandfather left to me in his will, the same place I'd spent every summer of my childhood, where we hung our boots by the back door and learned how to clean a rifle before we could even drive. The place I'd promised to protect, even from time. And now, without a call, a warning, or my permission, it was gone. They thought deployment would keep me distracted. They forgot who raised me. They forgot I know exactly how to run an operation. And now they were the mission. I didn't sleep the night I got that text. I sat on the narrow cot in my barracks, staring at the wall, while the ceiling fan buzzed above me like an insect that wouldn't die. My boots were still laced. My fingers still smelled of oil from the convoy check. But all I could see was cedar, the porch swing, the chipped blue shutters, my grandfather's old hunting knife stuck into the kitchen beam right where he left it. By 0500, I was already logged into the county records portal. It wasn't hard. Everything's public if you know where to look, and I was trained to look. The first thing that hit me was the sale price, $310. That cabin and the 32 acres of land around it had been appraised at nearly $1.2 million just 2 years ago. I had the documents to prove it. I'd submitted the valuation myself during probate after Grandpa died. Then I saw the name on the seller line, Sandra Ward, my mother, not acting on my behalf. Not as a trustee, just Sandra Ward. And the buyer, A Shell Company. Maplestone Holdings, LLC. Registered in Connecticut, no website, no employees listed. But I recognized the name of the managing officer immediately, Martin Cresswell. He wasn't just anyone. He was the father of my brother's fiancée. The same man who'd once told me at Thanksgiving, "You Army types don't understand investment." The same man who apparently had just flipped my inheritance through a paper company with my mother's forged authority. My jaw clenched so hard I tasted copper. I searched the file for a power of attorney, and there it was, a document dated 2019, when I was still in officer training. I remembered signing it then, just in case of emergencies. I also remembered revoking it in writing, certified and notarized in 2021. That revocation nowhere in the file. Gone, ignored, or erased. I pulled up my cloud backups, found the scanned PDF of the revocation, and forwarded it to my JAG contact before I even took a breath. Then, I emailed myself the entire chain of evidence, the forged transaction, the lowball price, the buyer profile, and the legal inconsistency. By sunrise, I had a manila folder named Cedar Theft. I didn't know yet what I would do with it. But I knew this. If they thought I'd let this go, let them wipe my name from the one thing I was raised to honor, they had no idea who I'd become. And I wasn't done digging. The more I dug, the filthier it got. Maplestone Holdings wasn't just a shell, it was a maze. Registered agents in 3 different states, quarterly filings that barely said anything, and a mailing address that turned out to be a UPS store in Stamford. But there was one detail they hadn't buried deep enough. A secondary contact listed for correspondence, Cresswell Equity Group, a name that rang louder than any alarm. Martin Cresswell wasn't just a father-in-law in waiting. He was a real estate opportunist who made his money buying foreclosed veteran properties at auction and flipping them for corporate retreats. It had made headlines once. I remembered it clearly because my brother Logan had posted the article on LinkedIn with the caption "Vision." That's what leadership looks like. Now that same man had bought Cedar Hill for a fraction of its worth with the help of my own mother. And Logan, he wasn't just a bystander. His name was listed as an advisory board consultant to Maplestone, an honorary title, sure. But it came with one thing: early access to the listing. The rage that built in my chest was cold, focused, not loud. They hadn't sold a cabin. They'd staged a transfer. An insider deal disguised as convenience. While I was 10 time zones away, they passed the deed among themselves like passing mashed potatoes at Sunday dinner. I opened my email drafts. I didn't hit send yet, but I wrote a line to Marcus Dinn, retired JAG, now a civilian military lawyer I'd trusted since my first deployment. Subject line: need immediate review violation of SCRA. I knew the Service Members Civil Relief Act by heart. I'd helped other soldiers use it to pause foreclosures to delay debt collection. It was designed to protect those on active duty from predatory financial activity. Selling my home while I was deployed without consent, that was a textbook violation. But it wasn't just about legal loopholes. It was about loyalty, about blood, about the fact that I could have died out there halfway across the world and come home to find nothing waiting for me, and they would have still smiled at my funeral. I copied all the relevant records into a secure cloud folder: property transactions entity, search results, screenshots of Logan's LinkedIn post, the POA revocation bank wire records for the down payment. One by one, they fell into place like pieces of a chessboard I didn't ask to play. The final piece, A, scheduled listing on a private real estate group forum offering Cedar Hill as prime renovation opportunity with generational charm. Date posted 2 days before the sale was even finalized. They didn't just betray me, they planned it. I waited until night fell over Rhoda before making the call. The line clicked once, then again. Then came the familiar voice, low, steady, always 5 seconds ahead of the storm. Marcus Dinn. "It's Riley," I said. "Ward." A pause. Then, how bad I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I sent the link to the Cedar theft folder I'd built. I heard the notification ping on his end. Silence stretched as he clicked through. 3 minutes passed. Maybe 4. Finally, he spoke. "This is felony-level fraud. They violated SCRA, used a revoked power of attorney, and completed a sale across state lines through a falsified entity. That's 3 separate criminal charges if prosecuted right." I exhaled slow. "I'm not looking for revenge," I said. "I want it undone. Legally, publicly. I want them to know they can't scrub me out of my own bloodline." He didn't ask why. He didn't have to. Marcus had served with my grandfather back in Panama. He knew what Cedar Hill meant to the family, and he knew what it meant to me. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "Time," I said. "And witnesses." He nodded on the line. "I'll draft the complaint. You'll need to file through federal court due to the SCRA angle. And you'll need to appear physically. I've got 2 weeks of leave in 4 weeks." "That's soon enough," he said. "But I need to warn you, it'll blow up your family. Your mother could face charges. Your brother could be subpoenaed." I didn't hesitate. They already made that choice. I'm just naming it. The next morning, I filed my official leave request. Unit command signed off without question. I had commendations on record 0 pending obligations, and enough accrued days to justify the trip. Still, I hesitated as I packed my duffel bag. Not because I feared conflict, but because part of me still clung to the quiet hope that anyone would text again. Apologize. Admit wrong. No one did. By the time my boots hit the tarmac in Albany, 4 weeks later, I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a plaintiff. And Cedar Hill wasn't just a home, it was a battlefield. The drive up the mountain was colder than I remembered. It was late October, the leaves already turning. Gold rust and fire clung to the branches like they knew what was coming. The same winding road I used to bike as a girl now felt like a slow crawl toward a crime scene. I stopped the car just past the old wooden sign that still read Cedar Hill, Ward family, since 1953. The paint was peeling the edges, warped from years of frost and sun. But it stood. What didn't, the back fence, the tool shed, the lilac bushes Nana planted. Gone. In their place, a sleek black sign staked into the ground. Future site of the retreat at Cedar, coming summer 2026. I stepped out of the car. Gravel crunched under my boots. The front porch had been stripped, the swing removed. Windows blacked out with cardboard and masking tape. A new lock had been installed. But the doormat still said, "Welcome home." The irony was almost funny. I walked the perimeter, first phone in hand, documenting everything. The construction debris, the removed trees, the modified mailbox. Then I sat on the hood of my rental car and opened the leather-bound folder I'd carried across 2 continents. Inside my grandfather's original deed, the POA revocation, the property valuation report, and something else, something I hadn't told Marcus I had. A letter, in Grandpa's handwriting, to be opened by Riley Ward and no one else. I'd found it by accident when cleaning out my footlocker years ago. It was tucked inside the final draft of his will, dated and notarized. I never opened it. I didn't need to. But now I unfolded it. If this place is ever taken from you, fight for it. Not because it's land, not because it's mine, but because it was built from what they never could steal from us: discipline, honor, and quiet strength. That's what Cedar Hill is. That's what you are. I stared at his signature. A chill moved through my chest that had nothing to do with the mountain air. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to protect legacy. Behind me, a white SUV rolled up the driveway. A woman stepped out, clipboard in hand, phone already pointed at me. "You can't be here," she said. "This is private property." I looked her straight in the eye and slid the folded letter back into the folder. "Tell Mr. Cresswell I said the rightful owner just came home." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Old wood paneling lined the walls, worn smooth by generations of hands. The federal seal hung above the bench, flanked by two flags, one for the United States, one for the state of New York. The only new thing in the room was the tension. To my left sat Marcus, calm as always. To my right, a line of observers, reporters maybe, but more likely small-town neighbors, curious to see how far the Ward family had fallen. Then they walked in. My mother first. Sandra Ward in pearl earrings, and the same winter coat she wore every Christmas, like it made her immune to guilt. Logan followed, adjusting his tie eyes, darting. And behind them, Martin Cresswell, calm as stone, not a flicker of concern on his face. The judge entered. Gavel. Rise. Swear in. Then the dance began. Marcus opened with the facts: a revoked power of attorney, a property sale conducted during active deployment, a conflict of interest involving familial connections and business interests. Every detail lined up, every document matched. I watched my mother's face as the emails were displayed. Her signature, the dates, the notarization timestamp that didn't match any of her known travel records. She blinked once, then lowered her eyes. When it was my turn to testify, I kept it short. I served overseas while this transaction was carried out without my knowledge or consent. The cabin was my inheritance, my legal right. And more than that, it was the core of my family's honor. What they did was not just unlawful, it was deliberate. Then Marcus submitted the letter. Not the contents, just the existence of it. Proof of intent. A final word from my grandfather that confirmed this home was never meant to be bartered away like a business asset. When Logan was called, he hesitated, then pled the fifth. Martin Cresswell tried to stay composed, but the judge interrupted him mid-sentence. "Mr. Cresswell," he said flatly, "you may be used to boardrooms, but in my courtroom, silence is wiser than spin." Then came the moment I hadn't expected. The judge leaned back, reading through the final document. Then he looked up at me. "Lieutenant Ward, I served in Fallujah. I know what it means to come home and find the ground shifted under you. What happened here was not just unethical, it was predatory. I'm ordering the sale annulled and full legal title restored to you effective immediately." The gavel struck. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. For the first time in months, it didn't hurt. 3 days after the verdict, I drove up the mountain again, this time, not as a visitor, not as a plaintiff, but as the owner. It was early morning. Fog clung low to the ground, curling like smoke around the base of the trees. The drive was quiet, save for the steady hum of the rental's engine and the faint clatter of tools in the trunk. In the passenger seat sat a locksmith named Ray, an older man with a patched denim jacket and a voice like gravel. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. When we reached the turnoff, I slowed. The wooden sign still stood Cedar Hill, Ward family since 1953. But now it felt different. Not just a marker of lineage, but a line drawn in the dirt. A boundary I had reclaimed. We pulled into the gravel path, and I cut the engine. The silence was heavy. Sacred. Ray got to work on the door. The lock was modern shiny, installed after the sale, probably by the developers, or whoever they hired to prep the place for renovation. I stood behind him on the porch, arms crossed, staring out at the tree line. The air smelled like wet pine and distant rain. Beneath that, I could still detect traces of smoke ghosts from the fireplace, from a time when Grandpa used to stack logs with surgical precision. A click, a turn. Then Ray stood brushing dust off his knees. "She's yours again," he said, offering the new key. I took it in silence. The brass was cold and my palm solid. I slipped it onto the chain around my neck next to the dog tags I'd worn since basic. The door opened with a reluctant groan. I stepped inside slowly. It smelled like time. The furniture was gone, cleared out during the sale, no doubt. No more rocking chair, no dining table with the carved initials, no couch with the blanket folded just so. But the bones were intact. The floor still creaked in the same spot near the fireplace. The window in the kitchen still let in morning light that painted the counter gold. The nail where Grandpa's old army cap used to hang was still embedded in the hallway beam. I walked the house like I was taking attendance, room by room, memory by memory. In the upstairs bedroom, the one that used to be mine, the wallpaper was peeling near the corner. I peeled a bit back and found what I'd half forgotten, faint pencil markings, tracking my height year after year. 2001, 2003, 2007, a sharp uptick in 2010, the year I made the varsity soccer team. I ran my fingers across the faded numbers. They tried to erase me, but they didn't know where I was written. I went back downstairs and opened the windows. The air that rushed in was sharp and clean. I swept the dust out with an old straw broom I found behind the water heater. Then I lit the fireplace, not because it was cold, but because I needed to hear the crackle to smell the sap and ash. I didn't call anyone. No announcements. No social media. Let the silence say what I never had to. 2 days passed without interruption. Then, on the third afternoon, a single envelope appeared in the mailbox. No return address. I knew the handwriting before I even opened it. Logan. The note was short, just one sentence in the center of the page. "I never thought you'd actually fight us." I stood there for a moment, reading it twice. Then I folded the paper in half, walked to the fireplace, and fed it to the flame. I didn't need his apology. What I needed, I already had. I stepped outside and stood on the porch as the wind stirred through the oaks, carrying the scent of cedar and smoke. Behind me, the door shut with a satisfying thud. This time, the lock was mine. Winter came early that year. By Thanksgiving, the trees had long since surrendered their leaves, and frost settled thick across the field behind the cabin, like a second skin. Each morning, I stepped out onto the porch, with black coffee in hand, wrapped in Grandpa's flannel jacket, patched at the elbows soft from age, and watched the land take its breath. It was quiet now. Not empty quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore. 3 weeks had passed since the verdict. I hadn't heard a word from my mother. Not even a voicemail. Marcus told me her legal team filed a motion to drop the appeal in the interest of preserving family dignity. I almost laughed when I read the phrasing. Dignity that had left the moment they sold what wasn't theirs. Logan, true to form, never sent another letter. But I didn't burn the first one. I didn't frame it either. I kept it folded in a drawer right beside the new deed. Not because it mattered, but because it didn't. Let it yellow. Let it fade. Let it sit beneath the weight of truth. Cedar Hill didn't need defending anymore. It needed restoring. I started with the porch, replaced 3 warped steps, rehung the front swing, using reinforced chains. Then came the kitchen new copper fixtures, revarnished cabinets. I worked slowly, intentionally, like every nail I drove in was a line I was rewriting in my family's story. I didn't hire contractors, just me, a toolbox, and time. Some afternoons, neighbors would pass by. A few stopped to chat, curious but kind. Most just nodded. One man, Vietnam vet ball cap and deep voice, offered to help when he saw me hauling shingles. He never asked what happened. He just said, "You're doing right," and went back to his truck. That was enough. The third Saturday of December, I painted the front door red. It was Grandpa's favorite color, though he never used it here. Too bold, he used to say. We're quiet people, but maybe he was saving it for when someone came along who understood boldness wasn't noise. It was presence. It was saying, I'm still here. And I was. One night, with snow starting to fall, I sat by the fire and unfolded his letter again. The creases were worn now. I knew the words by heart, but I read them anyway. If this place is ever taken from you, fight for it. Not because it's mine, but because it was built from what they never could steal from us. Discipline, honor, and quiet strength. He never said home. He said strength. He said fight. He said you. Cedar Hill was never just about land. It was never about inheritance or square footage or property value. It was about a line drawn in quiet defiance. About a foundation you could stand on even when everyone else turned their back. About proving that even if your name is forgotten at the dinner table, it can still echo in the grain of wood, in the way a lock clicks shut, in the sound of snow sliding off a roof. No one else thought you'd claim again. I didn't stay to prove anything to them. I stayed because this place reminded me of who I was before they taught me to doubt it. Before I learned that family can be the first to call you ungrateful when all you ever wanted was enough. And so I stayed. I rebuilt. And each day the house warmed a little more. Not from heat, but from meaning. Because legacy isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when everything's gone. It's about who fights for what's quiet. And it's about knowing in your bones that some doors don't close behind you. They open and stay open for the ones who choose to keep watch. Like Grandpa. Like me.